Okay, so let's get started. We're going to be taking a look at doing drive-by-wire setup and configuration for this training module with our Link G5 and G4X systems. Drive-by-wire control is an amazing tuning and calibrating tool that we have. It's going to allow a lot of flexibility for idle control, part throttle, and wide open throttle. So if your vehicle is cable, I would recommend to switch to drive-by-wire because it gives you an enhanced amount of control, and it's going to be, in my opinion, the best way to go about dealing with calibrating and tuning your engine. So with drive-by-wire control, we're going to find that we have this virtual relationship between an Excel pedal assembly that we're going to put our foot on in the vehicle and the actual throttle blade movement. We can make this linked at a 1-to-1 ratio, so meaning if we put our foot on the pedal 20%, it's going to open up the plate 20%, just as we would find with a cable-driven throttle body. We can also change that relationship, so we might have to push on the pedal in the car 30 or 40% to open the throttle blade 20%. That can improve drivability on really large throttle bodies. We can also make the pedal plate relationship hypersensitive, so we might only have to push on the pedal 10% to get the throttle blade open to 20%. So we can change the driving characteristics of our vehicle pretty drastically with drive-by-wire. It allows a superior way to control the idle compared to an idle control solenoid, whether it's a stepper or pulse width modulated solenoid. Those can be problematic sometimes to get things right. Drive-by-wire eliminates that stepper motor or that pulse width modulated motor that can be problematic and inconsistent a lot of times for idle control. So we have all of those benefits. We also have the added benefit of being able to tune the throttle, let's say at high RPM, how we'd like. We could actually shut the throttle down going into a rev limiter, so it softens up the rev limiter. We can control the power to weight ratio of our vehicle because we can control how much horsepower the engine makes based on our throttle blade opening. So if we have a power to weight ratio class in racing, we can actually change the power to weight ratio of our vehicle, of our engine, so that we're able to meet those class rules. So there's a lot of benefits for drive-by-wire. We can get really creative with it. We're going to talk about how to do all of that in a couple more tutorials here. So we're going to be breaking this down. This is the setup and configuration tutorial. The next tutorial is going to be taking a look at PID-based tuning and getting the advanced style tuning configuration for the drive-by-wire control setup. Then we're going to have another tutorial taking a look at doing some of the feature sets with the drive-by-wire control in our control table. And then we're also going to be taking a look at idle control with drive-by-wire, which we haven't talked about yet here in the training course. So a lot of details, a lot of separate tutorials and topics coming up here. Let's focus on doing the basic configuration and setup for this tutorial. So what we're going to do is move from our fuel page here, and we're going to jump over to drive-by-wire page. Let's go and find out all the details in that page. So let's go across here and go to DBW and double click here. And then we're going to find this page opens up. Now we see that we have our E-throttle set up here that we need to turn on so it knows that we want to run drive-by-wire. We have our throttle position sensors, and we have our Excel pedal position sensors. These are something we have to set up. We'll talk about how the system works here in just a second. So we don't want to turn anything on yet. What we're going to do is just talk about the basic components and some of the wiring details for a G4X and a G5 system. There's a slight difference in setup and configuration for the wiring, and I want to cover that first before we jump in and turn anything on here and do any setup and configuration work in the calibration file. So coming up on screen, we're going to find, I have this schematic, and this is actually from Link. This is showing just kind of an overall generic look at drive-by-wire control and the wiring and how all the components are going to be set up here. So this would be for a G4X or even a G5. There is a slight difference here, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. So taking a look at this, we find we have our E-throttle body, and then we also have our foot position sensor. So E-throttle body is going to be your drive-by-wire throttle body. Your foot position sensor is going to be your Excel pedal position sensor assembly. That's the actual gas pedal you put your foot on in the car. So we find that we have these two components, and they're wired into the ECU, which in this case will be our Link. We're going to find the first off, we have an aux 9 and aux 10. For a G4X, that's going to be the outputs, half bridge outputs, to control the circuit for the servo motor to drive it open or close. We have to pay attention on the servo motor for the drive-by-wire throttle we're controlling, where the positive and negative wire are going to be on the connector. So we wire it correctly here. Aux 9 goes to the positive output control for the servo motor, and aux 10 would be the negative output for the servo motor. So we have 2 half bridges, which make a full bridge to control the servo motor to open and close. Then we want to track the movement of the throttle blade. We actually want to know where that throttle blade's at. And we're going to be using the TPS sensors that are built into the e-throttle body in order to track that movement. So like any throttle position sensor, there's going to be a 5-volt reference, a sensor ground, and then a signal out from the sensor to the link. And in this case, we have 2 sensors. So we see TPS main and TPS sub. The reason why there's 2 sensors, there's always redundancy in drive-by-wire setup and control, so that if one of the sensors happens to fail, there's another sensor that's going to give actual position, backup position, and we won't get a runaway throttle and crash the vehicle. So OEM manufacturers, we're always running an OEM design throttle body. They're always going to have 2 throttle position sensors that we're going to wire in. So we definitely want to tie all those together. So it's going to take up 2 analog inputs for the throttle position sensor from our drive-by-wire throttle body. And then we're going to have 2 outputs, typically aux 9 and 10 for G4X. G5, you can actually use different outputs. Thanks for checking out our teaser clip. If you want to see the rest of this video and more than 500 hours of current EFI training we have to offer, make sure you click right here. If you want to go and check out more teaser clips from this training course, click here, and you don't want to miss any of the videos we're going to be releasing on this channel, so make sure you subscribe and click here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.